She left her family in a quiet Filipino village, carrying more dreams than dollars, with nothing but a stethoscope, a passport, and a promise to never stop helping others. Camille Andrea didn't come to Dubai for love. She came to save lives. But the life she tried to save would become the one that would cost her everything. She stepped off the plane into the dizzying heat of Dubai. Not as a tourist, not as someone seeking luxury, but as a daughter with a promise tucked deep in her heart, a promise to heal others and send money home. Camille Andrea was born on March 15, 1992 in Cebu City, Philippines. Home wasn't much, a two-bedroom cement box where 4 children and 2 parents squeezed nightly into narrow beds and thinner dreams. But inside that home, there was something stronger than struggle: hope. Her father, Jose, worked double shifts at a nearby shipping dock. His hands were stained with engine grease and salt water, and his back ached with years of lifting things too heavy for one man to bear. Her mother, LSC, washed other people's clothes day in and day out. Her fingers cracked and raw from cold rinse water, and too many prayers whispered into the steam. But Camille was different. While her siblings chased each other through the alleyways, dodging the chaos of street vendors, sweeping tricycles, and sputtering motorbikes, Camille studied. By candlelight when the power shut off, on borrowed textbooks when the money wasn't there. By 12, she was already tutoring neighborhood kids. By 16, she worked weekends at a local clinic cleaning floors and organizing meds. The nurses moved past her in pressed uniforms and quiet dignity, and she watched them not with envy but with clarity. That's who she wanted to be. Someone who could walk into pain and bring order, relief, maybe even redemption. Camille believed something beautiful, that education could be the key to escape, not just for her but for all of them. She earned one of the few full scholarships to Cebu Normal University, where she studied nursing. 4 years of perfect grades, no skipped classes, no excuses, just 14-hour study days, part-time jobs, and the quiet belief that every sacrifice would be worth it. And in 2016, at age 24, her hard work paid off. Camille passed the Philippine Nursing Board exam with flying colors, officially a licensed nurse. But reality has a cruel way of slamming doors after you walk through them. Because in the Philippines, even with qualifications, a nurse barely makes enough to survive, let alone lift her family from poverty. She had done everything right, studied, served, endured. But when the calls for jobs never came or paid too little to matter, another opportunity opened from across the sea. Dubai. Glamorous skyline, endless opportunity. Tales of nurses making in 1 month what they'd earn in 6 back home. She applied, she waited, she prayed. And when the offer letter came in legitimate, Camille said yes, without hesitation. On September 3, 2017, wearing the only smart outfit she owned, she boarded a plane to the most glittering city in the Gulf. She arrived with 1 suitcase, her credentials, and a heart full of intention. Be professional, be kind, work hard, send money home. That was the plan. Camille quickly secured short-term contracts, often through private clinics or in-home care services. The work was long, the pay modest, but better than in Cebu. She lived in Dara, a dense urban neighborhood, sharing a small flat with 3 other nurses. They each worked different shifts, so sometimes days passed without seeing a single friend. But she didn't complain. She cooked rice in a shared pot, video called her parents every Sunday, and quietly sent money through remittance counters without fail. No nights out, no shopping sprees, no distractions. In her heart, she believed something dangerously rare. That if you kept your head down and your conscience clean, the world would reward you. Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon. That way, you'll never miss any new coming videos like this. Now, let's get back to it. She never imagined that her integrity, that very goodness, would make her a target. Because in a city built on appearance, Camille's sincerity was rare, and rare things attract attention. In a high-rise on the other side of town, a very different story was unraveling, one that started not with sacrifice, but with indulgence. One man had everything Camille never had except peace. And soon, their worlds would collide. What began as caregiving would end in betrayal. And what Camille thought was her greatest opportunity was actually the beginning of a trap. By the time Camille arrived in Dubai, Adam Al-Thani had already built his kingdom. At 45, Adam wasn't just wealthy, he was untouchable. 3 construction companies, a luxury car dealership, real estate portfolios stretching across Dubai Marina, downtown, and Palm Jumeirah. He lived in a penthouse in the Burj Khalifa, not because he needed the view, but because he needed the world to see him. Glass walls, imported Italian marble, art installations he barely understood, but it didn't matter. Every inch of his home whispered what he craved most. Power, validation, control. To the world, Adam was a success story, a self-made billionaire, a refined man with taste and class. Women wanted him, men envied him. But beneath the tailored suits and polished charm, something was missing. Adam collected women the way some collect wine or watches, to display, never to keep. To him, love was a transaction. You give me attention, I give you everything. Until the thrill fades. And then, like clockwork, he moves on. His wife, Soraya Al-Thani, knew all of it. She'd been 23 when she married him. Young, educated, and beautiful, the perfect addition to his image. At first, she believed she was special, that over time, love would grow. But love, in their world, couldn't survive behind closed designer doors. Soraya was 38 now, still stunning, the type of woman who walked into charity events and silenced every whisper with her elegance. But beneath the surface, exhaustion, humiliation, rage, carefully disguised as grace. She survived every affair Adam had, like a politician, survived scandal, with platinum silence and diamond smiles. The secretary in 2015, the yoga instructor in 2016, the art gallery owner who showed up to a fundraiser in Soraya's shoes. She saw it all, she swallowed it all. Why? Because divorce in their world meant erasure, loss of status, exile from the social inner circle, and worst of all, the prenuptial agreement she'd signed, wide-eyed and in love. It would leave her with next to nothing. So Soraya played the long game. She curated the image, held the empire together, endured. But when Adam underwent emergency gallbladder surgery in March 2017, and a doctor recommended hiring a private nurse for home care, something shifted. Camille Andrea was referred through a reputable agency. Quiet, professional, highly trained. She arrived each morning in clean scrubs, did her job with precision, and spoke only when spoken to. Adam, groggy and recovering, was accustomed to caretakers who flirted, who lingered in his presence like he was a god. Camille wasn't like that. She didn't laugh at his jokes. She didn't fawn over his art. She focused on the chart, not the charm. She asked professional questions. How is your pain today, Mr. Al-Thani? Please take your antibiotic after food. I'll check your vitals again before noon. No smiles, no small talk, just skilled, serious care. And of course, that made Adam curious. Soraya noticed immediately. Not in the way Camille looked at Adam. There was no sign of inappropriate behavior, but in the way he looked at her. With fascination, with interest. This isn't another affair, Soraya thought. This is something else, something calm. Dangerous even. So she did what she never had to do before. She stopped wondering. She started watching. Soraya hired a private firm, discreet, trusted. She had cameras installed in the recovery room. Microphones. Hard drives linked only to her private network. And every day from her walk-in closet, she watched Camille go about her duties, watched Adam try and fail to impress her. What she saw made her stomach twist, because Camille wasn't trying to seduce him. She was just being good. And that's what made it worse. Adam had never fallen in love with a woman who didn't ask him for anything. Until now. And Camille had no idea what kind of world she had just stepped into. Adam Al-Thani had mastered the skill of silent suffering. In public, she was elegance personified, impeccable in custom gowns, gracious at galas, smiling for the cameras beside the man who betrayed her behind closed doors. But behind her perfect posture and polished pearls lived a woman quietly unraveling. Because for the first time in years, Adam's interest in another woman felt real, not just physical, not fleeting. Camille Andrea didn't flirt. She didn't beg. She didn't scheme. She showed up at 6:00 a.m. sharp, opened her notebook, checked his vitals, adjusted his pillows, served his medication like a sacred routine. Soraya watched every second. She saw the shift begin, not overnight, but drip by drip. Adam's questions began to change. How's your family? Do you miss the Philippines? What made you want to become a nurse? Camille, exhausted and alone in a foreign country, began to share little things. Her youngest sister, Mika, studying microbiology back home. Her father's bad back. Her mother's dream of opening a small sari-sari store one day. Adam listened, or pretended to. He remembered their names. He offered to help pay tuition. He asked for photos. When Camille gently declined, he didn't push. At least not at first. To Camille, Adam felt like a safe space. The only constant in a city that otherwise felt cold and unfamiliar. While her roommates worked night shifts, while she'd eat dinner alone, Adam listened. And Soraya watched. She noticed the subtle change in Camille's expressions. The slight blush when Adam made her laugh. The way she started arriving 10 minutes earlier, staying 20 minutes later. This wasn't a girl chasing gold. This wasn't someone scheming for status. This felt like love. And that was the most dangerous kind. Because now Adam wasn't just cheating on his wife. He was confiding in another woman, building with her. And for a man like Adam, who saw everything as replaceable, this level of emotional investment was rare. Soraya had seen affairs. She had survived them. There was always a pattern: seduction, obsession, boredom, reset. But with Camille, the boredom never came. She watched her husband shape an alternate life. They discussed plans, vacations, even silly things, like Camille saying her dream was to send her mom on an airplane for the first time. Adam said, "We'll make that happen together." That word, together, made Soraya clench her jaw as she fast-forwarded through hours of footage. And one morning, after she saw Camille tenderly place a cool cloth on Adam's forehead and smile quietly before leaving the room, Soraya closed her laptop and made a choice. She wasn't going to confront Adam. She wasn't going to beg. And she certainly wasn't leaving. Because you don't build a 15-year empire of reputation and influence just to be discarded like the last page in a tabloid scandal. No, she would wait. She would watch. And then when the time was right, she would rewrite the script. Adam thought he was in control. Camille thought she was building towards something pure. Neither of them saw the quiet storm sitting across the hall. Behind the screens, perfectly still, perfectly calm. Planning, not for confrontation, but for a checkmate. Every afternoon, somewhere between the second dose of pain medication and the quiet of the recovery suite, walls began to fall. Camille Andrea kept telling herself it was just a job. He was her patient, she was his nurse. Their interactions were clinical, respectful, professional. But emotions don't follow job descriptions. It started with stories, not touch, not temptation, just words. Adam would lie in bed, staring at the skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows and talk about his loneliness. How everything outside the glass shimmered and everything inside felt empty. He spoke about his father, who showed love through silence more than speech. He joked about his childhood house that always smelled like fresh paint and dust from another room being remodeled. He'd point at the skyline and say softly, "It's weird having everything and still feeling like you're nowhere." Camille listened and then slowly began to share how much she missed home, the sound of her mother sweeping the front porch, the smell of garlic frying in oil before dawn. They were both clearly from different worlds, but for a few still hours every afternoon, they seemed to exist in the same one. Adam no longer looked at Camille the way he'd looked at the women before her. It wasn't just about allure. It was admiration. And that, more than charm or wealth or seduction, is what made her start to fall. But falling wasn't planned. It never is. It happens slowly. Too slowly to recognize, until you're already too deep. Camille didn't flirt. She didn't dress differently. She didn't want to feel anything beyond duty. But what happens when someone starts to ask how you're doing? When every other part of your life is built around taking care of others? Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon. That way, you'll never miss any new coming videos like this. Now, let's get back to it. One evening, around the 4th week of his recovery, Adam developed a minor complication. Nothing life-threatening. A medication reaction, some nausea, mild dehydration. Enough that Camille chose to stay overnight as a precaution. She sat by his bedside, took notes, monitored vitals, kept him company through the quiet hours. They talked all night. About childhood dreams. About faiths. About expectations placed on the eldest child. About what it feels like when everyone expects you to be strong, even when you're drowning. At 3:17 a.m., as the call to prayer echoed faint from a mosque across town, Adam looked at her and said, "Thank you for seeing me. Not the money, not the apartment, just me." Then he reached out and gently held her hand. Not flirtatiously, not suggestively. Just as a man who felt seen for the first time in a long time. Camille hesitated, then squeezed back. To her, it felt like compassion. To Adam, it was permission. Camille thought she was comforting a patient. She didn't know she had just stepped into a trap. After that night, the energy between them changed. Adam asked her to stay later, talked more openly, laughed more. One afternoon, as she packed her bag to leave, he said it quietly, "I don't want you to go." She froze, then smiled politely. "I'll be back tomorrow, Mr. Al-Thani." He shook his head. "I don't mean tomorrow, I mean for good. I want you in my life." Camille's heart raced. This was everything she vowed to avoid. He was married, she was his caregiver. Her job, her integrity, everything was at stake. "Adam, this is impossible." "Nothing is impossible," he replied. And then he said the one thing that hit the deepest wound in her heart. "I can take care of you, your family, everything you deserve. No more night shifts, no more worrying about tuition. I can make it all go away." It sounded like a dream. It felt like rescue. And Camille, whose entire life had been about sacrifice, finally saw herself not as a provider, but as someone another person wanted to provide for. But what she didn't see was the woman watching every glance, every word, every promise whispered after midnight. She didn't see Soraya across the hallway, sitting in silence with headphones in, her finger hovering over the record button, not blinking, not breathing. Because what Adam and Camille believed was a private connection was actually Act 1 of someone else's revenge. The first kiss wasn't planned. It rarely ever is. 3 days after Adam told Camille he wanted her in his life, she lingered a little longer than usual. The sun had dipped below the skyline. Dubai's glass towers glowed gold, casting their reflections across the room like flames licking stone. Camille was adjusting Adam's pillows, resetting his alarm, writing notes in her small clinical journal. Their conversation had drifted into silence, but a soft, intimate kind of silence. And then Adam leaned in. Not like a man lunging in lust. Like a man who believed what he was doing was right, inevitable. Their lips met just for a second. Camille didn't pull away. She didn't move closer either. She froze, and in that pause, her life split into two paths. One she could never return to. One she could never see coming. They said nothing afterward. Just a quiet, mutual understanding that the line had been crossed. From that moment, they didn't pretend anymore. They became what Soraya feared most. Not an affair, a possibility. Adam brought her coffee in the mornings now. Camille, once so disciplined, began to laugh louder, stay longer. She arrived early, left a little later. Not because she was asked, because she wanted to. The air between them was no longer filled with clinical questions and body temperature charts. It was thick with flirtation, promises, future plans whispered like prayers. Adam, of course, gave generously. An apartment near Dubai Marina, a furniture allowance, a bracelet for her birthday. He kept his distance physically in public, but emotionally, he gave her everything. "You won't have to worry ever again," he told her one evening while her head rested on his shoulder. "I'll take care of your family. I've already spoken to someone about bringing them here." To Camille, the idea was like oxygen. She pictured her mother riding an escalator for the first time. Her sister Mika shopping for textbooks, worry-free. Her father finally resting his back after decades of hard labor. It wasn't greed. It was relief. Like getting a taste of the life she'd worked so hard to build, but never dared to believe she could actually claim. Meanwhile, just across the marble floor and down a discreet hallway in the same home, Soraya watched it all. Every kiss, every lingering gaze, every promise Adam had once made to her, now gifted to someone else. But unlike the women before Camille, this one was dangerous. Because she wasn't trying to seduce Adam. She was trying to believe him. And that meant she wouldn't leave quietly when it fell apart. Soraya knew the signs. This wasn't just physical betrayal. It was preparation for replacement. And when she found receipts, diamond jewelry, apartment leases, wire transfers, her blood ran cold. She opened Adam's laptop, emails, conversations, meeting confirmations with lawyers. Not to file for divorce yet, oh no, but to evaluate prenuptial exposure. His lawyer wrote, best executed near year-end to maintain estate liquidity and minimize reputation risk. He was planning the cleanest exit possible. And Soraya, she was just a line item in the plan. 15 years of playing the elegant, devoted wife, wiped off in bullet points and asset divisions. The humiliation wasn't private anymore. Her friends would know. The country club whispers would follow her. The invitations would dry up. And the life she'd built, not the money, but the identity, would be stolen by a 25-year-old foreign nurse who didn't even know she was being used. No warning, no confrontation. Soraya made up her mind while watching a video of Camille fixing the collar on Adam's silk pajama top before kissing him goodnight. She didn't break down. She didn't scream. She opened a folder on her tablet labeled Camille, Primary Evidence. And she started collecting screenshots, surveillance angles, audio files, receipts, dates, times, rewritten timelines, but not raw data. Soraya had no interest in only telling the truth. She was beginning to reshape it, cutting out Adam's flirtation, erasing his manipulation of Camille, isolating audio where Camille talked about their future without showing what he'd promised her first. And on a second hard drive, another folder. Plan B, medical records. Soraya wasn't just facing betrayal. She was crafting retribution. And Camille still believed she'd won. The morning of July 16th began like any other shift for Camille Andrea. She dressed in muted scrubs, tied her hair back, packed her notebook and vitals kit. She took the early metro and prayed quietly during the ride. Something had felt off since the night before, but she chalked it up to exhaustion. She was scheduled to begin at 7:00 a.m. like clockwork. But when she used her key to enter the apartment Adam had gifted her just weeks earlier, there was silence. More than silence, stillness. She walked into the bedroom, and the world collapsed. Adam Al-Thani, the man who promised her a life of security, of family reunions and wedding vows, was laying cold, pale, and unmoving. At first, she thought he was sleeping. Then she saw the position of his body. Then she heard nothing, no shallow breath, no struggle, no groans. Panic spread like fire up her throat. She screamed. She shook him. She dialed emergency services with trembling fingers. Within minutes, the hallway was flooded with voices, neighbors, building guards, and then finally Dubai police. At first, it looked like a tragic medical accident. A man recovering from surgery, pain medication in his daily regimen, possible side effects, possible complications. Possible, just possible, that this was an accident and nothing more. But everything changed when the police began asking questions. Why was Adam in his family home? Why did a private nurse have a key to a luxury apartment? What was their relationship exactly? And why was Camille crying like a woman who had lost a lover, not a patient? The walls around her fell fast, the moment she admitted tearfully that they'd been involved romantically. The tone of the investigation shifted. No longer a grieving caregiver. She was now a person of interest. The toxicology report came back fast and devastating. Adam's blood work revealed fatal levels of fentanyl and oxycodone, far beyond therapeutic range. Enough to kill, enough to confirm either gross negligence or something worse. Intent. The paper trail did the rest of the talking. There was no denying that Adam had financially supported Camille. He'd transferred large sums to her name, rented an apartment, bought her jewelry, bought her time. On screen, it looked like seduction. On paper, it looked like payment. In the courtroom, it looked like motive. And then came the surveillance footage, discovered by Soraya, who appeared at the police station with trembling hands and tear-stained cheeks. She claimed she had only recently found the footage in Adam's cloud storage, as she was trying to understand the man I married. The footage showed Camille administering medications, staying overnight, sharing intimate conversations. It showed gifts, kisses, carelessness, or so it seemed. Crucially, it showed, or implied, Camille giving Adam 2 doses of medication too close together, shortly before the estimated time of death. What the court didn't know was that the footage had been edited, masterfully, precisely. Parts of Adam's voice were missing, parts where he had requested meds earlier than scheduled, or where he had begged Camille to let him sleep through the night. Gone. Instead, they saw Camille, alone, unsupervised, unguarded, drawing syringes, organizing pill trays, and accepting his promises as truth. Soraya gave a powerful testimony. She told the court she trusted Camille, opened her home to her, believed she was helping Adam recover. And instead, she believed she had used that trust and their vulnerability to gain access, both emotionally and physically. She didn't cry much, just enough. The prosecuting attorney leaned into the chaos. Camille Andrea entered the home not as a nurse, but as a snake in the grass. She took advantage of weakness and wealth, and when her promises started to unravel, she bought herself time the only way she knew how, with a bottle of poison disguised as medication. Camille's defense was thin. She had no family in Dubai, no powerful connections, no forensic team to prove the videos had been tampered with. She insisted Adam self-administered before she arrived that morning. She swore she followed protocol. She wept as she described the man she loved, the man who promised her a future, a life. But the court saw something else. A young nurse, far from home, entrusted with power over life and accused of betrayal. The verdict: guilty, involuntary manslaughter, criminal negligence, and fraud. 15 years in prison, followed by deportation. No chance of appeal. As Camille was taken from the courtroom in handcuffs, her final words were soft, almost inaudible. "I didn't kill him. I loved him. But to the system, that love looked too much like murder." It took nearly 2 years for the truth to crawl back into the light. Camille Andrea sat in the Dubai Central Prison, her soft hands now calloused from work duty, her voice quieter from days of silence. No visitors, no appeals. No one believed in her story anymore, not even her. Back in the Philippines, her family suffered the aftershocks like an earthquake with no end. Her father, Jose, fell gravely ill. Years of dock work had mangled his back, but now, the stress of his daughter's conviction had consumed what was left of him. Her mother, LSE, lost her laundry business. Too many whispers, too much shame. And her youngest sister, Mika, she dropped out of university, the same dream Camille had once promised to fund. The very family Camille risked everything to support was crumbling without her. Meanwhile, Soraya Al-Thani vanished. Quietly, cleanly. After the conviction, she told reporters she planned to retreat from public life and grieve privately. She ferried her remaining assets into offshore accounts, sold the Burj Khalifa penthouse, and made discreet exits from every board and social circle she had once dominated. Her last known appearance was at a private women's business retreat in Geneva. Then she disappeared completely. And for a while, it stayed that way, until someone else opened the drawer. In early 2021, a routine audit of Adam Al-Thani's estate triggered red flags. A young Emirati financial investigator named Warren Harris, combing through records of final medical expenses, discovered oddly manipulated footage files tied to Camille's trial. Files provided not by the police, but by Soraya. He wasn't a detective, just an accountant. But something about the file metadata didn't sit right with him. Timestamps mismatched. audio gaps where there should have been smooth waveform, overwriting markers that suggested non-linear, professional-level editing. Warren forwarded the findings to his supervisor. The supervisor stalled, then escalated. Within months, an independent digital forensics firm was brought in privately, this time by a retired legal contact who had grown uneasy about the original conviction. And what they found changed everything. The surveillance that had convicted Camille had been cut, cropped, rearranged. Audio of Adam pressuring Camille to stay longer, muted. Footage of her refusing expensive gifts, deleted. Files documenting proper medication labeling and storage, missing. A whistleblower, a former senior technician at the private firm that installed Adam's home surveillance, quietly came forward. He remembered something odd, how Mrs. Al-Thani had asked specifically for manual access and offline backups. Just in case something ever goes wrong, she had said. He had no idea at the time that he was handing her the perfect tools to create a lie that looked like evidence. By early 2022, the case gained steam again. New hearings, appeals, internal reviews. But there was no justice yet, just quiet rage and sharpened hindsight. Because Soraya, she was gone. Last traced to Montenegro, a country with no extradition treaty with the UAE. All attempts to contact her failed. And Camille, she had already served 2 full years. Her name dragged through global press. Her nursing license permanently revoked. Her dignity erased. When the Dubai courts finally acknowledged that the original trial was mishandled, they quietly reduced Camille's sentence. As she was released, stripped of status, placed on a flight, deported, she returned to Manila a ghost. No cameras, no crowd, not even a formal apology. Her face, once filled with fire, now watched the world through the eyes of someone who no longer trusted it. She spends her days now helping her mother sell rice and bread from a tiny stall on the side of the road. Not because she has to, because she's trying to feel human again. When asked by a rare journalist how she feels about Adam now, Camille didn't answer right away. Eventually, she whispered, "I don't think he knew what he was doing. He told me he loved me. Maybe he did. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a lie." And Soraya, she was never found. Interpol continues to categorize her as a person of interest. But for now, she remains exactly how she planned to be. Invisible, untouchable, unpunished. In the end, 3 lives were destroyed. 1 man died believing he was in control. 1 woman was ruined for trusting a fantasy. And the 3rd, the wife, she walked away from the wreckage she created like it was just another chapter in a story she always intended to write. Not a widow, not a victim, not a monster, just a woman who refused to let anyone else win. In a city built on glass towers and silent secrets, 1 act of love turned into a weapon, and 3 lives were shattered. Camille sought to heal, Adam craved to feel, and Soraya refused to lose. In the end, truth came too late, and justice came with no apology. How many stories like this remain hidden, polished behind power and privilege? We'll never know, but here we remember one. If this story struck a chord, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more true stories that reveal the darkness behind the shine. Until next time, stay vigilant.